For now, though, we've got the Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill Lewis, who is in studio with us. He pulls in here from time to time, comes along to talk about issues affecting our city. Still grim about that Stormers defeat. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Uncle Aden and Sarah and Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit bleak, but life must go on, man. We've got another season coming up, and next year we'll have a much better field. That'll help us a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, field issues aside, the thing. I mean, just quickly, I always look at when we do big events in our city, just how everything tied together so perfectly.
Yeah.
We could get people into the precinct, into the stadium, out the precinct, and I mean, it was effortless.
You know that nearly a quarter of the stadium used the free My City shuttles.
I saw those buses at the end just lined up, all good to go.
That made a huge difference, and actually, the traffic was quite relaxed.
Yeah.
It wasn't a major crush as it has been sometimes in the past. So I'm hugely grateful. We seem to be getting this traffic management absolutely right now.
Spot on. Love it. You're not here to talk about Saturday. I mean, I wish we had more time just to unpack what went wrong with the Stormers. But
Jules decided to stay home.
Yeah, I think so.
He left me with it.
In protest. Because housing is a big thing at the moment. In fact, we've got you in the news at the moment talking about that report that had been commissioned by your predecessor, just looking at tenders that had been issued. And it's all about housing, social housing, unlocking more land, more tranches, more tracts of publicly owned space to be able to build more housing. So talk to us about just the most recent development, Central City, Cape Town.
So the issue that we're trying to deal with, we've got about, we think, 100,000 people coming to our city each year. Now, not all of them need housing, but many of them do. Mm-hmm. And using the government grant that we received to build free housing, what we call RDP housing, we can probably build about 2,500-3,000. So you can see there is a massive mismatch between the housing that is needed and the free government subsidized housing that we can actually build with the grant available. So what we are focusing on, more of our efforts, is what's called social housing. Social housing provides affordable rentals starting at about $700, so very affordable, and going up to about 4,000 rand is the kind of top limit of the rentals. And we are really trying to push more of those projects in the city, and particularly in well-located parts of the city. So we committed that we would release much more of our own parcels of land. We've got some small parcels, not enormous, but the ones that we do have, we must use. And last week we released another one at a place called Newmarket Street in Woodstock, very, very close to the CBD, right on the edge of the CBD. And it's quite a big project. So we could probably get somewhere north of about 250 social housing units into that site. So that's going to be very nice. So that's gone through council now. It goes out now for one of our social housing institutions, our social housing partners, to take up and to deliver that project. And that is the fifth one, Aden, that we've got through council in the last year alone. So that's a really nice acceleration, and that's one of the ways that we're going to try and address those very big numbers of people that need access to more affordable housing in our city.
All right. The concept of waiting lists, we've spoken about it. I've chatted with your predecessors, multiple predecessors. I've spoken to National Department of Housing. The concept of a standardized, integrated waiting list just does not exist. So who benefits from these social housing projects? Because there are people who've been waiting 20, 30, 40 years who just hope that their name is on a list somewhere, who are often left very grim when they see that people who are perhaps newer, either to the city or just younger, even though they might have grown up in Cape Town, but are younger and perhaps have been waiting for a shorter time for housing. So who ends up benefiting from projects like the ones you've just outlined?
Okay, so let's just talk about normal state subsidized, what we call, just between us colloquially, we call RDP housing. That we do have a unified single beneficiaries list for that, and people can go to any City of Cape Town office to check it. However, what we often find is that people change their details often,
yes,
or their personal circumstances change. Remember that housing in South Africa is done on a needs basis, based on your household income. So sometimes people were eligible for a house, their personal circumstances have improved, and that's great to hear. And then they are no longer eligible for a totally subsidized house. They might be eligible for a partially subsidized house. The social housing program is specifically done on a application basis and on family income. So you have to earn less than 22,000 Rand as a whole household, your total household income. And depending on what you earn, that is how much of your rental will be subsidized. So again, starting at about 700 all the way up to about 4,500. So it's a sliding scale of subsidy, and it is done on an application basis when those projects become available. So now Newmarket Street, the one we've just released last week, will go through the process of getting a successful bidder and then be constructed, and then that social housing company will make applications open, and so people have just got to watch that very carefully.
All right. There's a thing called the Mayoral Priority Programme for land release. What exactly is that? How does that work?
Oh, well, that's just the way that I keep track of it in my office. You know, what I said when I was running was various other spheres of government have got these huge pieces of land in Cape Town. You've got Eysterplaat, you've got Wingfield, you've got Youngsfield, you've got really big pieces of land. We can't access those yet as much as we'd love to. But the ones that we have, we can do something about. Even if they're much smaller, we can make sure that we get them out to market quickly. Now, the process for getting a piece of government-owned land out for a social housing project is a very slow process. So you've got to keep your eyes and fingers on it and keep it focused and pushing it through the kind of sausage machine of the system. And so that's what we do through this priority program. Every month we go through the parcels of land that we want out for social housing, all in well-located parts of the city, in the CBD, in Durbanville, in Bellville, in Claremont. And we say, right, what's happening with this piece? What do we need to do over the next 30 days to push it further? And we literally just go, it's a very simplistic system, but it actually works to get much more speed and get those land parcels out there for social housing. All right,
and the other bits of land you've mentioned, those massive tracts that either belong to public works or defence and so on. I mean, Youngsfield, Wingfield, those are military bases or naval bases. The process to unlock that land, I mean, so firstly you've got bureaucracy, and I suppose you've got politics at play also. I mean, you know, those are interesting bedfellows as we try and address housing backlogs in our city.
Yes, although the politics has not been that much of an obstacle recently, because the former mayor of Cape Town was, until very recently, the public works minister as well. And when she was mayor of Cape Town, she was also campaigning for the release of those land, and she's been very supportive of us in trying to access them. But the problem is, even though she's the public works is technically the owner, this is where it gets really messy. Yeah. The user is defence, and they are not interested in letting go of them. Now, we have offered to move them at our own cost up to Langebaan. There's another Air Force base in Langebaan.
Yeah.
So we said we'll move the planes, we'll move the hangars, all of that. We'll cover the cost if you let us have Eysterplaat, a massive piece of land. Just no one's taking the offer. So we're just going to keep pushing. But now the problem is you have a change of minister. There's a new minister of public works. About a year ago, there was a new Minister of Defence, and so you've got to start this thing all over again, and you start to build up the relationship again. But we'll keep pushing. But in the meantime, the point we made is we can't control what happens with Defence. We've asked them. They know that our request is there. What we can do is control the much smaller parcels, but nevertheless the ones that we can control. We've got to get them out there.
All right, there we go. And often, people lump because people see politicians as one unified entity. Well, surely if they speak to one another, the answer is simple. Well, you've heard from the mayor, not nearly as simple as all of that. And often goodwill might be plentiful, but action is very thin on the ground. So that's the story. Thanks very much once again for your time this morning.
Always
really
lovely
appreciate it.